The defensive coordinator search saga continues.
Yep.
Looks like Al Harris is next up. Of course, he worked with Dan Quinn in Dallas. I was telling the boys, I saw somebody tweet, I think this is accurate, that like for the last 3 years, he's had the leading interceptor in the NFL. Been like 3 different Cowboys, I think. You go back to like Bland, Diggs, and there's one other guy. So that's something, obviously, that Washington needs to focus on, not only just get better defensively, but create turnovers. Seems to have been able to help that. So far, Joe Cullen has been interviewed. Brian Flores has been interviewed. Brian Flores now off the table because he's re-upping in Minnesota if he doesn't get a head job.
Yep.
Jonathan Gannon, the ex-Cardinals head coach. Patrick Graham, the Raiders DC, has interviewed here. Of course, they're going to interview Al Harris. Carl Scott, the Seahawks DB's coach. And then Denard Wilson, the former Stag and former Maryland Terrapin ex-Titans defensive coordinator, is interviewed here.
I did put up the poll of the day. Have the Commanders botched their hires at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator? You can vote at Junks Radio. Junkies poll sponsored by Surfside. Use the code JUNKS at store.statesidevodka.com. Get 25% off select merchandise, tees, hats, hoodies, and more. Love my Surfside hoodie. Use that code JUNKS at store.statesidevodka.com. I went on with Grant and Danny yesterday, and I know Danny's really upset they didn't interview Mike McDaniel. Mm-hmm. I went and looked at the numbers. You know what? The last 2 years, his offensives have been below average in points, in yardage.
Yeah, but you've seen the things he can design. You've seen
his first 2 years were really good.
Well, you might also argue he has a average to possibly below average quarterback as the trigger man
hasn't been playing
for his
well.
offense.
That's usually how it works out, though, right?
He still has a reputation.
I still kind of like Mike McDaniel. I think he's going to do good things in L.A. for Harbaugh.
I'm quite sure that he and DQ had a conversation. And while they may have not done a formal interview, I think they decided for whatever the timing wasn't right or whatever, especially with him. I think, like JP said, I think the fix was in. They wanted Blau. They didn't want to lose him. DQ's talked about how he likes to hire from within. I just think it just wasn't going to work this go around.
I think it was predetermined. They were going with David Blau. They went through the interview process because you kind of have to do it with the Rooney Rule and all these things. And so they even interviewed a couple of their guys, and he leapfrogged 2 guys, one an assistant head coach / running backs guy who's been a head coach, who's being interviewed by the Buffalo Bills for the head coaching job, and he leapfrogged Brian Johnson, who's been a play caller and offense coordinator in Philadelphia. So they believe he's a boy genius.
Yeah, well, they're hoping.
Right, they didn't want him hitting the open market. That's why they offered him the gig.
As far as the defensive coordinator goes, I personally think that Flores, and again, I'm just a dope. I don't know anything. I can't tell you anything really about Patrick Graham. Brian Flores was the sexiest name for me. He's now off the board because whether he gets a head coaching job or not, he's going back to Minnesota as a DC. I don't know. I don't have an opinion. All the guys, Denard Wilson. Why do I want him just because he's a Stag?
Yeah,
not really. Carl Scott. I don't know. Al Harris. Sure, I like the resume. I like the fact that he knows how to coach guys up.
He helps create turnovers, man. You look at this.
Turnovers.
The current Commanders, led by Mikey Sanderson with 4 picks.
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner was second on the team with 2.
Yeah.
Lattimore, 1.
I don't know how you coach that. I don't know how you teach guys.
But here's the thing about these candidates.
Yeah.
Now that San Francisco and Green Bay are open, they're probably more attractive than Washington.
Yeah, I think this is not an attractive job.
I mean, just comparing those two that have openings now.
Why would you want to come here and coach the worst-ranked defense? I guess you could say, well, it could only go up. Well, that's true, but could only go up a couple spots.
So Harris has never been a defensive coordinator. He's just been a defensive backs coach, right? I'm pretty sure.
I think so. Defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator.
Defensive pass game coordinator, right?
Yeah. So who knows?
But he's been with he was with Kansas City for a while.
Dallas.
Chicago this past year.
Yeah. Maybe I would lean Al Harris cakes. I don't know. But I
seems to be the lean right now.
I don't have a strong opinion, to be honest with you.
Do you think they've botched it, Jason Bishop? 1-800-636-1067 if you want to chime in. Do you think Washington has botched the hires at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator.
Well, they haven't hired a defensive coordinator yet.
But that might be part of the problem. Like maybe you could
I
throw
gotta
a
wait
bigger
to see.
bag of Flores.
No, I got to wait to see who it is. We have no idea why Flores didn't take it. We have no idea.
Well, maybe he likes the personnel in Minnesota. He's comfortable working with O'Connell.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
sure they offered him a big sack of money to stay. I don't know the
Let's wait and
details
see.
of his deal, but I'm sure they paid him
David
handsomely
Blau,
to retain him.
They love David Blau. I mean, I guess you got to trust them that he's going to be good with Jaden. Would I have preferred a more established guy with some experience? Probably, but Blau might be the next Mike McDaniel.
Al Harris did have assistant head coach title in Dallas in 2024.
Oh, did
That
he?
title just makes
I know
me
that
laugh.
I know they just slap an extra
if it
title
was
on, but-
legitimate, like if that was a legitimate title, all right. If I'm Anthony Lynn, forget that he's getting interviewed by Buffalo. I'd be offended that a 30-year-old assistant quarterbacks coach gets leapfrogged over me to be the next offensive coordinator. And if I was Brian Johnson, I'd be offended too, because you are in a position that's above this guy who's 30 years old. You've done the job. You've been a play caller.
Sometimes younger
No,
guys
it would be
they
like-
get bigger opportunities.
I know, but it would be like all of a sudden promoting Ben. Like all of a sudden Ben.
Right.
Who's been here for a week.
Yeah, I know, but hey, sometimes the job market is unfair.
I guarantee they're offended. They
Hey, you
look.
think-
They
hey,
still want to
you
get
think
paid.
Valdez would be better if all of a sudden Ben was assistant program director?
I'm sure he wouldn't be happy.
Right? That
But,
would be,
but
it'd
at
be
the
a
end of the
poop
day,
show.
at the end of the day, just like Valdez, just like us, we're employees. We just have to deal with it.
No, of course.
We don't
But
own
he does,
the team. We're not calling the shots.
Of course, but he does point to there could be some bitterness in the building.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be one thing if you hire somebody from outside. Like if Mike McDaniel got hired, Anthony Lynn could deal with it. Instead, Anthony Lynn, who's been a head coach, who's been an offensive coordinator, so he's been a play caller, he gets leapfrogged by a guy who was the assistant
You know
quarterbacks
what Dan
coach.
Quinn doesn't care about right now? Ruffling feathers and hurting guys' feelings because he needs to win to keep his job.
He does.
He feels like
But-
hiring Blau is the best way for him to win.
Look, Blau may be excellent, and we've gone through his resume, right? He's
Right.
got ties to Ben Johnson and all these great play callers, and he's been a quarterback in the league. But this is a theory. He also might be somebody that is more amenable to having the front office tell him this is what we want to do.
He could be.
And Cliff
give me
Kingsbury
more-
supposedly
he could influence him more.
Cliff Kingsbury supposedly wasn't happy
Right.
with the GM intervening, saying, hey, this is what you should be doing on first down. This is what you should be doing on second
Well,
down.
not necessarily that. It
Right.
sounds like he was questioning him after every week they would have sit downs. He didn't
Yes.
really like that.
It's the last thing any coordinator wants.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where we are. We'll see what happens with the Al Harris situation. We got people chiming in. I know Valdez also has audio that we can get to. If not this segment, we get to later of John Lynch talking about Brendan Ayuk and Kyle Shanahan. By the way, I was completely thrown during the national championship game when they kept saying offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan. They kept throwing me. Did you show that?
Not
See that?
related.
Yeah, not related.
Yeah, same
but it's a
name.
Shanny. And it's,
Yep.
It's another Shanny.
It was
I had to
making me
look it up.
crazy. Yeah.
I was like, nope, not related.
All right, let's go to Terrence in Baltimore. Speaking of Terrence, I don't know if you're a Ravens fan, but Valdez tells me that Rossini is reporting that Lamar kind of favors Cliff Kingsbury.
Nice.
That's not good news for Valdez.
What's up, Terrence?
Hey, how you doing, fellas? So I'm not a Ravens fan. I moved here a couple years ago. I'm a Washington fan through and through from
Nice.
Northeast DC. But I think they got it right, man. I think that, for me, either way, whether we had a good season or a bad season, I thought Cliff was going to be gone after this year, right? So I think that they were always planning on replacing him possibly with Blau, and it just kind of came under different circumstances, mutually parting ways versus him taking another job. And so I think they got that part right. As far as the DC goes, I like Patrick Graham. Honestly, I know the Raiders defense, numbers-wise, they don't necessarily look appealing, but I think he, anytime you have a DC that was able to last through different regimes, I think that says a lot about how good of a person and how good of a coach that person is. So and he's been able to do a lot with less, in my opinion, outside of Max Crosby. So I think I think Patrick Graham might be a good choice, but I also think that they're just expanding their search because I think DQ understood that, hey, the way I'm doing it and the way I maybe see defense and the way I call it is antiquated and old, and I do need to bring someone in that's different, that sees it different and does it a different way than I do it.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, Terrence. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
All
Terrence.
right, let's go to Devin in Rockville. Hey, Devin, what do you think? Did they botch it?
I don't think they botched this, fellas, man. I'm a tail off of Terrence, man. I think they got it right with the offensive coordinator position. Mike was the home run hire, but let's be real. If we would have hired Mike and we would have had a good season, he'd be gone after a year. I think Blau is you have him longer than a year or two, maybe
That's a good
even
point.
3, so you keep the consistency.
Yeah.
But the defensive coordinator, like you guys been saying too, it's not appealing. Like who worthy going to want to come over here? We don't have nothing shiny to work with, so it's a project when you come over here and these people's jobs and their name on the line. So I will be blessed if we could bring Al Hurst, because remember, DQ wanted to bring Al Hurst over here with him when he came from Dallas. Joe Witt was the second option. I take it off the air.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Devin. Appreciate it. Is that true? He wanted Al Harris, couldn't get him, so Joe Witt was the guy?
I hadn't heard that. Maybe.
Maybe
mean,
I don't want that stench of that Joe Witt anyway. You know what I'm saying? But maybe that's a knock against Al Harris.
They denied the interview request.
Al Harris did.
The Cowboys
Oh,
did.
the Cowboys did. Gotcha. But they let him take Witt. You can have Witt, but you can't have Al
They
Harris.
knew what they were doing.
Wow.
They were on to something
We're sabotaging
in that case. All right, coming up next, we'll be joined by Brian Baldinger, Odyssey NFL insider. He will join us next here on the Junks.